Chapter 16. Appearances are everything. Amelia gingerly dabbed her open bullet wound with a cloth, soden in rubbing alcohol. She, Sherlock, and John had went after the golem, which had ended in a rather brutal and difficult fight. She had escaped with the worst wound out of all of them, receiving a gunshot to the shoulder. Although that wasn't hard to do, as Sherlock had got away with a bruised arm, and John with a twisted ankle. Besides, it was Amelia who had charged at the golem without a second thought. Perhaps it wasn't one of her best ideas. "Let me help," Sherlock said, taking the cloth from her and wiping her wound clean. He picked up the needle and thread Amelia had prepared, already beginning to stitch the cut close. She let out a small hiss of pain, causing him to smile. "Come on, you can do it. Just a few more stitches." "Be nice," Amelia snapped. "I took that bullet for you, you big, bumbling idiot." "You flatter me," Sherlock said sarcastically. He had noticed that their complicated relationship included a lot of bickering, arguing, and quite violent actions. For example, yesterday, Amelia had thrown a teacup at Sherlock's head because he had attempted to feed 2 human toes, to see what they would do to his digestive system. Sherlock held back a chuckle, tying off the stitches. "Damn," Amelia said, frowning down at the stitches. "That's going to leave a mark. You act as if you haven't gotten shot before." "Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt," Amelia pointed out. She thought for a moment. "Come to think of it, your brother shot me once so he could psychoanalyze my reaction." "And what did you do?" "I looked him dead in the eye, snapped his umbrella over his desk, and then proceeded to remove the bullet with the letter opener." Amelia pulled out the hem of her blood-soaked shirt with her good arm to reveal the fading knot of pink scar tissue. Amelia lowered her shirt. "I think I'm going to go change." Sherlock said nothing, instead unbuttoning his shirt and wordlessly handing it to her. "Then you have to go get a shirt. You and I both are well aware of the fact that you are going to borrow one of my shirts with no intention of ever returning it. I'd rather much you keep this one rather than a nicer one." "Always so considerate, sure. Don't you dare call me by that atrocious nickname." "I think not. I'm rather fond of it." Amelia shrugged off her shirt, wadding it up and placing it in the sink. She pulled on Sherlock's shirt, making sure not to smear any of the blood on the white fabric. "It's rather large on you," Sherlock observed, taking a step towards her, hands hovering over the waistband of her trousers. "Of course, yes," Amelia said, Sherlock tucking the shirt underneath the top of her trousers. "You do realize you've got no shirt on, yeah? Are you complaining?" "Turn." Amelia complied. "Oh yes, horribly so. It's terrible, and utterly scandalous. You couldn't possibly be wandering around the flat in such inappropriate attire." Amelia rolled her eyes. "They say sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, you know. Must be why you're so fond of it." Amelia could practically feel Sherlock smiling. The detective took a step back. "Much better. Since when did you care about appearances?" "Since I spent my entire childhood with my elder brother, who decided that appearances are everything. He expected me to dress as proper as he did, which isn't a bad thing, save for the fact that I was only in year 5 and was being forced to wear 3-piece suits to school." Amelia grimaced and had to bite back a laugh. She cleared her throat. "Perhaps you want to put on a shirt before we go, sure." "I want to know what happened with you and Moriarty," Sherlock said, taking a seat at the table, not seeming to be affected by the cold in the slightest. "There's obviously more to the rivalry between you two that you're keeping from me rather well, I must say." Sherlock, the last woman who began to describe him, went up in flames. "Then you'd better be careful of what you say." Amelia sighed and sat down across from Sherlock. She rolled her shirt's sleeves up her elbows, clasping her hands on the table. He wasn't always a maniac," she said, wetting her lips and staring down at her hands. "Well, he wasn't when I met him. He was charming, charmistic, not the ruthless killer he is now. He had an older brother, Jackson, 2 orphan boys with nothing but each other." "And you grew close to them, I'm assuming," Sherlock said. "Naturally," said Amelia. "We met in Cambridge during my university years." "And you fell in love with him," Sherlock said. "Not exactly." Amelia ran a hand through her hair. "It's complicated, sure. Moriarty and I were together, yes, but I'd had a brief fling with Jackson. I think it was then that Moriarty started to lose control of his life. He'd lost his parents, his twin, and then he'd lost the woman he'd loved to his brother. He made me join forces with him so I'd never be out of his sight. He made me into someone I didn't want to be. And when Jackson started to question his brother's authority, Jackson was put out of the picture. Of course, this was when my brother stepped in." "Of course," Amelia agreed. She cleared her throat. "Moriarty got away, obviously, but I knew too much. I could go to jail. Or I could help to try and bring down the empire I had unknowingly created. You know what I chose? Sherlock regarded her for a moment. You got back at him by committing to your job. Clever. Moriarty didn't like it, needless to say. Amelia pressed her knuckles to her lips, staining the skin crimson. To say the least, I wasn't the same after that. No one would be, Sherlock said. He clasped Amelia's hands between his own. I assure you that you do not have to take him down by yourself anymore, Amy. Sherlock got to his feet. Now, would you care to join me in proving a Vermeer painting fake? Are you two done flirting? Can we leave now? Asked John, poking his head in the kitchen. As if you're any better, Amelia scoffed, rolling her eyes. I've read your emails to your girlfriends. Far more poetic than anything Shakespeare could have written. I'm quite impressed. John blushed fiercely, muttering complaints under his breath as he walked away. Do you think it's odd that we dress so similarly? Amelia asked, slipping on the Oxford Sherlock had grown fond of. She knotted the scarf round her neck pointedly, putting on her bell staff and folding the collar down. I have impeccable fashion sense, Sherlock said vaguely. Coming, Amy? Oh, God, yes. Sherlock and Amelia stood in front of the Vermeer painting, the pink phone held in Sherlock's hand. John, Lestrade, and Mrs. Watson stood behind them, unsure as to what Amelia and Sherlock were doing. It's a fake, said Sherlock. It has to be. That painting has been subjected to every test known to science, and Miss Watson said sharply. It's a very good fake, then. Amelia spun to face Miss Winslow, eyes flashing. You know about this, don't you? This is you, isn't it? Inspector, Miss Winslow turned to Lestrade. My time is being wasteless. Would you mind showing yourself and your friends out? Then the pink phone started to ring. Sherlock answered it immediately. The painting is a fake, he said quickly. The person on the other end remained silent. Sherlock sighed. It's fake. That's why Woodbridge in Carrie's was killed. There was still no response. Oh, come on, Sherlock continued on, exasperated. Proving it's just the detail. The painting is a fake. I've solved it. I've figured it out. It's a fake. That's the answer. That's why they were killed. Sherlock let out a breath. Okay, I'll prove it. Give me time. Will you give me time? 10, a young boy's voice said, his voice trembling in fear. It's a kid. It's a kid, Lestrade realized. Oh, God, it's a kid. What did he say? John questioned. 10, Amelia repeated. 9, the boy said. It's a countdown, Sherlock said. He's giving me time. Jesus, said Lestrade. The painting is a fake, but how can I prove it? Sherlock said under his breath. How? 8. This kid will die, Sherlock said to Miss Winslow. Tell me, why is the painting a fake? Tell me. She opened her mouth to say something, but Sherlock held up his hand, stopping her. 7. No, shut up. Don't say anything. It only works if I figure it out, Sherlock said hurriedly. Must be possible. Must be staring me in the face. 6. Come on, Sherlock, Amelia said softly, so only Sherlock could hear her. I've started to figure it out. He turned to face her, arching his eyebrow. Amelia met his gaze steadily, surprisingly calm under pressure. Isn't it obvious? It's because of John's blog, Sherlock. What did John say on his blog that could be used against you? Sherlock knitted his eyebrows, murmuring. Woodbridge knew, but how? 5. It's speeding up, Lestrade said urgently. Sherlock, Amelia said in a low voice. What did John say that was so important that could be used against you? But it's the solar system, Amelia's voice ran through his head, her laughter ringing in his ears. Do you really not know that the earth goes around the sun? Lestrade's question haunted him, and that was the moment when it all clicked. Of course, Sherlock thought. How could I be so stupid? Oh, he exclaimed. 4. In the planetarium. You heard it too, Sherlock said, turning to Amelia with a wide smile. Oh, that is brilliant. That is gorgeous. He placed a large and dramatic kiss on Amelia's lips, shoving the pink phone into Amelia's hands, taking out his own. 3. What's brilliant? What is? John said. Sherlock laughed, both delighted and marveled by the brilliant plan Moriarty had concocted. This is beautiful. I love this. 2. Sherlock, Lestrade shouted. Sherlock snatched the pink phone out of Amelia's hand, something wild look in his bright eyes. The Van Buren supernova. Please, is someone there? The boy said after a short pause. Somebody, help me. There you go, Amelia said, letting out a large sigh of relief. Go find out where he is and pick him up. She pointed to the stars in the painting. She hesitated for the briefest of moments before letting her lips brush Sherlock's. Good job. John cleared his throat. Right, sorry. She looked back at the painting, a smirk tugging at the corner of her blood-red lips. Exploding star only appeared in the sky in 1858. Sherlock showed Mrs. Winslow his phone. A page on the Van Buren supernova open. He gave her a look of triumph, lacing his hand through Amelia's and walking away. Thank you, he said to her. I'd never figured it out if you hadn't insulted me. Is that supposed to be a compliment? She chuckled, shaking her head. Any time, sure. Any time. It will be the closest you'll ever get to one. You sure know how to charm a girl, Mr. Holmes. Only for you, Miss Watson. Sherlock looked off into the distance. Only for you. Chapter 17. Distraction over. The missile defense plans haven't left the country, otherwise my craftspeople and our lovely Amelia here. Sherlock's tone was condescending and sarcastic. Would have heard about it. Despite what people think, we do still have a Secret Service. Yeah, I know, Amelia said sarcastically. I've met them. Which means whoever stole the memory stick couldn't sell it or doesn't know what to do with it, Sherlock continued, shooting Amelia's a glare. My money's on the ladder. We're here. Joe's home was extravagant in no way. Run down and unkempt. With the bricks coming loose from the mortar, with the rain gutter unsecured, Amelia was half worried it would fly off in the wind. Sherlock stared at Amelia for a moment, as if he were impatiently waiting for her to do something. It was then that Amelia realized that was precisely what Sherlock was waiting for. I thought you were over at your friend's house for the night.
I have to go to physical therapy tomorrow.
Out. I'm recording.
Yeah, but you just said that Sherlock was staring, so I started staring at you.
Yes, but they can't see that. Out.
Whatever. Not for the viewers, it's because I'm making fun of you.
Oh, I love you too.
Oh, yeah.
Which means whoever stole the did that. Great, you made me lose my spot! Okay. Joe's home was extravagant in no way, run down and unkept, with the bricks coming loose from its mortar. With the rain gutter unsecured, Amelia was half worried it would fly off in the wind. Sherlock stared at Amelia for a moment, as if he were impatiently waiting for her to do something. It was then that Amelia realized that was precisely what Sherlock was waiting for. With a great sigh, Amelia pulled out a lock-picking kit she had bought a few months prior, then attempted to get the door open. Where? Asked John. He then noticed what Amelia was doing. Amelia, what if there's someone in? There isn't. Don't be absurd. Jesus, John said as if he couldn't possibly believe what his sister was doing. But in reality, this was an all too common occurrence. Nevertheless, he was still following Sherlock and Amelia in as she managed to get the door open. Amelia walked up the stairs and into the living room, making certain that Joe was not home. Her hand rested on her hip where she hid her favorite Beretta, ready to pull it out at any time. Where are we? John said, confused. Oh, sorry, didn't I say? Sherlock said. Joe Harrison's flat. Joe? Amelia ignored the two of them, walking to the window, pulling back the curtain. She smiled at the view the window looked out over. Her suspicions confirmed. She turned back to face them. Brother of West's fiancée. He stole the memory stick. Killed his prospective brother-in-law. Amelia frowned. Weren't you going to take me to see your parents today, sure? Sherlock hummed vaguely, taking out his collapsible magnifying glass, examining the windowsill, where dark specks of red dotted the white paint. Then why'd he do it? John said, raising an eyebrow. Isn't that always the question? Amelia said, straightening as she heard the front door unlock. Let's ask him. She took out a knife from the waistband of her trousers, handing it to John before pulling out her pistol. My God, he said quietly. How many weapons do you carry? I lost count, Amelia answered simply, stepping out onto the landing. Her gaze fell upon Joe, wearing his courier gear. Joe's eyes widened, starting to pick up his bike as if he were to use it against her. Amelia aimed the pistol at him, fingers hovering over the trigger. Don't. Just don't. I've killed a lot of people. I'm not afraid to add another to that list. Joe set down the bike, then raised his hands above his head. It wasn't meant to, John started a while later, head between his hands. His voice trembled as he spoke, threatening to crack as the sobs began to rack his body. God, what's Lucy going to say? Jesus. Why did you kill him? Amelia asked emotionlessly. Her gray eyes regarded Joe coldly, and she seemed bored by the entire ordeal. It was almost as if there was nothing more than a bump in the road, and she had far more important things to do. It wasn't entirely a bad change, however. At least it wasn't in Sherlock's opinion. If anything, the change in her demeanor made her all the more interesting. She was manipulative, cruel, and utterly captivating. Sherlock had no doubts that if she wished, she could turn you against your loved ones, or plant a seed of doubt in your mind that would inevitably drive you insane, like the sirens of war. She held herself in such a way it was clear that she was the one who held all the power in the room, one who wore the crown and had the others at her beck and call. She was dark and regal monarch that would not hesitate to take a life if it meant her empire ruled for one more day. The crown she wore atop her head may not have been pure, nor was it rightfully earned, but there is no denying the fact that she had fought tooth, nail, and claw for it, and that she deserved it wholeheartedly. This was her area of expertise. That much Sherlock could tell. So for once, he took a step back and let Amelia hold the reins. It was an accident, Joe said. I swear it was. But stealing the plans for the missile defense program wasn't an accident, was it? Amelia's voice laced with venom. She hissed it so forcibly that even Sherlock found shivers rolling down his back. You've caused me quite a bit of grief, Mr. Harrison. You'd better be prepared to beg for my forgiveness. Sherlock wondered if Amelia was relishing in her power, and hesitantly placed a hand on her forearm. She looked down at it briefly, the aggressive infirmity edges of her sharp demeanor softening lightly. I started dealing drugs, Joe said, stammering. I mean, the bite thing's a great cover, right? I don't know how it started. I just got out of my depth. I owed people thousands. Serious people. Then at Westy's engagement due, he starts talking about his job. I mean, usually he's so careful, but that night, after a few pints, he really opened up. He told me about these missile plans, beyond top secret. He showed me the memory stick. He waved it in front of me. You hear about these things getting lost, ending up on rubbish tips, and whatnot. And there it was, and I thought it could be worth a fortune. It was easy to get the thing off of him. He was so plastered. Next time I saw him, I could tell by the look on his face. He knew. What happened? John asked. I was going to call an ambulance, but it was too late. I just didn't have a clue what to do. So I dragged him in here, and I just sat in the dark, thinking, Joe said softly. When a neat little idea popped into your head, Amelia said, looking out the window at the train tracks. Carrying Andrew West way away from here. His body would have gone for ages if the train hadn't met a stretch of track that curved. And points, John said, suddenly understanding what Sherlock had been going on about earlier. Exactly, Sherlock said with a small smile. Do you still have it, then? John said. The memory stick? Fetch it for me, Amelia ordered, and John nodded. If you wouldn't mind. Joe met her gaze tentatively, then nodded once as he hurried off to get the memory stick for the brunette. He stumbled over his own feet in a rush to get out of the room, desperate to get away from Amelia. Distraction over. The game continues, Sherlock said, looking off into the distance with a small, sad smile painted upon his lips. Well, maybe that's over too, John said. We've heard nothing from the bomber. 5 pips, remember, John? Sherlock turned towards the eldest Watson. It's a countdown. We've only had 4. Oh, murmured Amelia, taking out her phone. I see now. That's what this is all about. Always thought he was so clever, didn't he? Carl Powers, Poison in Medication. Ian Monkford, Janice Carr's Columbia. Connie Price, Botox. Vermeer Painting, the Van Buren Supernova. Solved all your cases, but that isn't what you're after, is it? The Bruce Partington plan, stolen by none other than Joe Harrison. Check. Your move, Amelia. Sherlock, it doesn't work like that, Amelia exclaimed as she and Sherlock sat in the sofa of 221B, a game of Cluedo sitting in front of them. I told you, the victims can't have done it. Why the hell not? Sherlock said, throwing his hands in the air. It's not in the rules. Maybe I don't like playing by the rules. Amelia sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Fine, whatever. The victim did it. She jumped to her feet, leaving Sherlock sitting on the sofa by himself. I'm done playing games with you, with Moriarty, with anyone else who wants to give it a try. Amelia, Sherlock whined, pouting as he followed her to the kitchen. Sherlock, she mimicked, boiling a kettle of water. She took out the teapot and 2 teacups, setting the cups down on their matching saucers. She crossed her arms over her chest, letting out a deep sigh as she sat on the kitchen table, making sure not to knock off any of Sherlock's precious experiments. Sherlock humped, rolling his eyes at Amelia's childish. Did you study law? He asked suddenly, eyeing a book which sat on the table, which had definitely not been there earlier. Yes, only briefly, though. I was never very good at it, Amelia said nonchalantly, pouring the now boiled water into the teapot. She let it steep for several minutes, Sherlock and Amelia standing in the kitchen in a comfortable silence. It did help for several of my cases. I would think so, Sherlock said. Amelia opened the fridge, unfazed by the severed arm sitting on a plate in the fruit drawer. We don't have any milk. Why do we never have any milk? I could have sworn I bought some yesterday. I threw it out, Sherlock muttered. Why? I needed the space for the arm, Sherlock said, shrugging. I'm going to go get some milk, Amelia shook her head, leaving the kitchen side door. You never asked if I wanted anything, Sherlock shouted after her. I know you don't, so I didn't bother, she yelled back, smiling at his comment. She closed the door to 221B behind her, making sure that the knocker stayed on an angle. Sherlock never liked it when it was straight. Okay. Bloody maniac, she said under her breath, biting her lower lip. Though, I suppose I'm not much better, she shrugged, realizing that she was talking to herself, and started the long walk to the nearest door. Someone came up behind Amelia, slapping a chemical-soaked cloth over her mouth. Amelia struggled to get free, her screams muffled by the person pressing the cloth down tightly. The sharp scent wafted up her nose, and she could taste the bitterness of chloroform on her tongue. Her world spun around her, a darkness pressing down on her vision. She fell limp, collapsing into the person's arms. The last thing she saw before she fell unconsciousness was a pair of dark and evil brown eyes. Chapter 18. Checkmate. No, 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 Sherlock shouted at the television screen, arms folded across his chest. Of course he's not the boy's father. Look at the turnips in his jeans, he muttered profanities under his breath, irritated that Amelia wasn't here to agree with him. She had texted him earlier, apologizing that she was unable to get the milk Sherlock had asked for, as Mycroft had suddenly asked her to complete paperwork for the Bruce Partington case, and was able to come home any time soon. To which Sherlock had promptly responded with slight irritation, but let her be. He knew better than anyone what Mycroft was like if he didn't have his way. Knew it was dangerous, said John, barely looking up from the screen of his laptop. Getting you into crap telly. Sherlock hummed in agreement, and he blew out a breath. Not a patch on Connie Prince. Have you given Mycroft the memory stick yet? John asked, hasty to change the subject before Sherlock went on one of his infamous rambles about the injustice in society and how he didn't get the credit he deserved. Yep, Sherlock said. He was over the moon, threatened me with a knighthood. Again. Sherlock chuckled under his breath. You know, I'm still waiting. For you to admit that a little knowledge of the solar system, and you've have cleared up the fake painting a lot quicker. Didn't do you any good, did it? Sherlock said contemptuous. No, but I'm not the world's only consulting detective, John shot back. Sherlock smiled at that. True. Sherlock closed his laptop, rising to his feet. I won't be in for tea, he said, eyeing Sherlock. I'm going to Sarah's. There's still some of that riscotti left in the fridge. Make sure to leave Ames some, or she'll bite your head off. Don't become between Amy and her food. Yes, I've heard this rule before, Sherlock said, nodding. Milk, John said, hovering in the doorway. We need milk. Amy was going to get it. I'll get some. John was in shock, unable to believe the words coming from his friend's mouth. Really? Really. And some beans, then? John hesitated for a moment, his eyebrows furrowed. Then he nodded sharply, then walked away. Sherlock remained seated in his chair, staring at the TV, until he was completely sure that John had left. He heard the door being pulled open, then the entire flat shuddered as it was slammed shut. Sherlock picked up his laptop, opening it to his website. Found the Bruce Partington plans. Please collect. He paused, smiling before adding on, the pool, midnight. Sherlock pressed enter, then shut his laptop, staring off into the distance. He hadn't realized exactly how quiet the flat got when he was alone, not until Amelia had come into his life. Nor had he realized how much he'd grown to enjoy Amelia's company. You're getting weak, Sherlock. Sherlock could practically hear Mycroft's condescending voicing. You're letting sentiment get the better of you. Oh, don't be absurd, Mycroft, Amelia's disembodied voice said. If it came to it and Sherlock had to choose between saving me or Mrs. Hudson, John, and everyone else, Sherlock would choose everyone else. But why? Sherlock insisted into the empty room. Why would I save the others? Amelia's image took form before him, daintily sitting in John's chair, one leg crossed over the other. Because I couldn't live with myself knowing you chose me over everyone else. You know that, she said. I know you don't quite understand it, but you care for me in the strange way that only you would. And part of that means, she chilled off. She coughed and tried again. Part of that means putting my needs before your own. Sherlock smiled ever so slightly, the corner of his mouth curling. You're right, he said. You always are. Of course I'm right, Amelia snorted. Then she frowned, leaning forward to look Sherlock in the eyes. Why am I right? Sherlock met her gaze, holding it. Because you feel the same about me, he said in a low voice, and you're too scared to admit it. Sherlock stepped onto the pool deck, his eyes scanning the poorly lit space. Several lights flickered and died, plunging sections of the room into darkness. The viewing section above the pool wasn't lit, and if Sherlock strained his eyes, he could have swore he saw something move within the shadows. A muscle in Sherlock's jaw clenched, but he continued walking further onto the pool deck, retrieving the Bruce Partington plans from the pocket of his finest trousers. He waved the memory stick around for all to see. Brought you a little getting to know you present. Oh, that's what it's all been for, hasn't it? All your little puzzles making me dance, all to distract me from this. He was desperate to know who exactly this man was. He was a man, and he was close with Amelia. That much Sherlock knew, but who he was, and what he looked like, Sherlock had yet to find out. Sherlock thought his introduction to the infamous Moriarty was going rather well, if he did say so himself. At least, he did until John stepped out from the shadows. Evening, John said coldly, hands shoved in the pockets of the oversized parka he wore. This is a turn-up, isn't it, Sherlock? No, it couldn't be. Sherlock was frozen in shock, although the hand holding the memory stick in the air trembled ever so slightly. The man Sherlock had grown to trust, the man Sherlock called his ally, the man Sherlock had shared an apartment with. He couldn't be the criminal. John, Sherlock said, horrified. What the hell? Bet you never saw this coming, John continued, sliding his hands from his pocket, brushing back the front of his coat to reveal the bomb strapped over his chest. A red light dancing over the Semtex. Sherlock was both relieved and horrified simultaneously. The problem with the bomb, he could get them out of, but he wasn't sure what he would do if John had turned out to be Moriarty. What would you like me to make him say next? John said, repeating the words coming from his earpiece. Gotta gear, gotta gear, gotta gear. John's voice cracked as Sherlock took tentative steps towards him, silently begging the detective to help him. Stop it, Sherlock demanded sharply. Nice touch, this. The pool where little Carl died, John said, continuing to narrate Moriarty's words. I stopped him, John paused, visibly fighting the urge to wince at Moriarty's words. I can stop the Watsons too. Stop their hearts. Sherlock frowned, puzzling over Moriarty's use of the plural forms. He turned on the spot, searching for Moriarty. Who are you? A door opened on the opposite end of the pool, accidentally hiding behind a column. I gave you my number, a soft Irish voice said. I thought you might call. There were 2 pairs of feet behind the column, Sherlock realized. One in black leather boots, and the other in a pair of Oxford. Sherlock straightened, struggling to keep his temper under control. Amelia. Moriarty had Amelia. Then Moriarty stepped into the open. He was slightly taller than Amelia, with dark, almost black hair, and eyes to match. They glittered dangerously as he eyed Sherlock, the hint of a smile on his thin lips. One hand was shoved in his pocket, the other holding a gun against the small of Amelia's back, the cold of the metal seeping through her shirt. A continuous blemish to the young Watson's cheek, painting her skin with splotches of purple and blue. A thick scratch marred her arm, caking her skin in blood. And even from far, Sherlock could see a bruise on her neck where a needle had pierced her skin. Is that a British Army Browning L9A1 in your pocket? Moriarty sang. Or are you just pleased to see me? Both, Sherlock said, pulling out his pistol. Moriarty stopped, eyebrows arched, at the detective's weapon. Jim Moriarty. Hi, Moriarty said, teeth glinting in the light. Sherlock watched him, head cocked to the side. Jim, Moriarty prompted, upset that Sherlock didn't recognize him. Jim from the hospital? He started walking, dragging Amelia with him. Oh, did I really make such a fleeting impression? But then, I suppose that was rather the point. Sherlock said nothing, instead raising his eyebrow at John, eyes glancing at the light flickering across his friend's chest. Don't be silly, Moriarty said, knowing what Sherlock was trying to say. Someone else is holding the rifle. I don't like getting my hands dirty. Unless it's for our dearest Amelia, of course. Oh, piss off, Amelia said at the criminal, rolling her eyes. She's feisty, isn't she, and incredibly clever. We mustn't forget clever, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to capture our attention. Ordinary people are just so boring, aren't they? He ran a finger along her chin. But Miss Watson here is far from ordinary. He inhaled the scent of her perfume. Amelia trying to invade him, but her efforts were futile, and Sherlock watched in horror as Moriarty placed his lips against the corner of her mouth. If I get out of this alive, Amelia said, I'm killing you myself. Moriarty smiled and turned back to Sherlock. I've given you a glimpse, Sherlock, just a teensy glimpse of what I've got going on out there in the big, bad world. I'm a specialist, you see. Like you. I'll be there in a moment! Moriarty's voice got childish, high, excited by the concept of him and Sherlock being so similar. Dear Jim, said Sherlock as he tried to avoid looking at the stain from Amelia's lipstick marking Jim's mouth. Please, will you fix it for me to get rid of my lover's nasty sister? Dear Jim, please, will you fix it for me to disappear to South America? Moriarty stopped walking towards Sherlock. Just so. Consulting criminal. Brilliant, Sherlock said. Jim smiled, proud of his work, and not feeling the slightest bit guilty of all the lives he's ruined. Isn't it? No one ever gets to me, and no one ever will. Sherlock cocked his head. I did. Amelia did. You two have come the closest. Now you're in my way. Thank you so very much for the compliment, James. I'm really quite flattered, Amelia said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Didn't mean it as a compliment. Yes, you did, she shot back. Jim let go Amelia as he shrugged, pushing her out in front of him. She stumbled, but caught herself and hurried to stand behind Sherlock. Jim's eyes never once left hers. Yeah, okay, I did. But the flirting's over now, Sherlock. Moriarty flashed a smile at Sherlock. Dad has had enough now. I've shown you what I can do. I cut loose all those people, all those little problems, even 30 million quid just to get you to come out and play. So take this as a friendly warning, my dear. Back off. Although, I have loved this, our little game of ours, playing Jim from IT, playing gay. Did you like that touch with the underwear? People have died, Amelia said, chin raised defiantly. That's what people do! Moriarty screamed on the last word, face distorted with rage. Amelia flinched. We will stop you, she corrected herself mid-sentence. Jim, unable to hold back his smile. No, you won't. I swore that I'd do whatever it takes to destroy everything you've worked so hard to create, Amelia stood forward. Jim, moving back. The same way you destroyed me. She took another step forward, Jim taking another back. I will take you down, piece by piece, until nothing of you remains. Forward, backwards. I will obliterate you, burn you, and reduce you to ash and rubble. You will fall, James, and I will be the one who pushed you. Amelia stopped, meeting Jim's eyes, unblinking. Darling, if all goes to plan, you won't be the one falling, Jim said. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Jim didn't reply. You all right? Sherlock said to John, breaking the silence. You can talk, Johnny boy, said Jim, when John remained silent. Go ahead, or are you too afraid to talk with me around? Amelia's done things, you know. Has just about as much blood on her hands as I do mine. John gritted his teeth, too stubborn to listen to Moriarty and speak to Sherlock. Instead, he turned to the detective and nodded once. Take it, Sherlock said, handing the missile plans towards Jim. Huh? Oh, that? He took the drive, grinning as he passed Amelia. The missile plans. He brought it to his lips, then tossed it into the pool behind him. John, Sherlock, and Amelia watched as it sank to the bottom. Boring! I could have got them anywhere. He spun to face Amelia. It's her that I want. Such a pretty little thing. Of course, that's all just packaging. What I want is up here. Jim tapped Amelia's temple, the brunette flinching under his touch. That was the final straw for John. He slammed himself against Moriarty, one arm wrapped around Moriarty's neck, and the other around his waist. An embrace that lacked all passion, fueled only by anger and hatred. Sherlock, run! Jim laughed. Good, very good. If your sniper pulls that trigger, Mr. Moriarty, then we both go up, John snarled in Jim's ear. Isn't he sweet? Moriarty said to Sherlock, completely unfazed. I can see why you like having him around, but then people do get so sentimental about their pets. They're so touchingly loyal. But oops, you've rather shown your hand there, Dr. Watson. A red light began to flit over Sherlock's forehead. Amelia froze, spinning around fiercely, a tempest rising within her furious eyes. You so much lay a finger on him. You'll what? You'll kill me? Jim gasped. I'm not afraid of dying. Neither are you, Amelia. Makes it rather hard to threaten us. Imagine what a suicidal serial killer could do. They could kill dozens of people, and at the end of the day, just kill themselves. The police would never have caught the killer, and yet their job is complete. You're the same way, Amelia, except you're afraid of what you're afraid of is what you'll leave behind. Gotcha. Amelia pursed her lips, then looked at her brother. John, please. Her elder brother hesitated for a moment before releasing his grip on Moriarty, taking a step back with his hands raised above his head. Jim dusted imaginary dust off his jacket. Westwood, he chuckled to himself, then started walking towards Sherlock. Do you know what happens if you don't leave me alone, Sherlock? To you? Oh, let me guess. I get killed. Kill you? Jim pulled a face. No, don't be obvious. I mean, I'm gonna kill you anyway, someday. I don't want to rush it, though. I'm saving it for something special. No, 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 no. If you don't stop prying, I'll burn you. I'll burn the heart out of you. I have been reliably informed that I don't have one. But we both know that's not quite true. True, Jim said, eyes briefly flitting to Amelia. Well, I had better be off. You're welcome to come with, Amelia. I'd rather not, she said. Your choice, Moriarty said nonchalantly, glancing around the room. He turned back to Sherlock. Well, so nice to have had a proper chat. What if I was to shoot you now, right now? Sherlock asked, raising his pistol. Then you could cherish the look of surprise on my face, he said, opening his eyes and mouth as wide as they could go, then grinning at Sherlock. 'Cause I'd be surprised, Sherlock. Really, I would. He wrinkled his nose, and just a teensy bit disappointed. You've had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with Amelia, you know, sort of like a Romeo and Juliet. And of course, you won't be able to cherish it for very long, because you know how Romeo and Juliet ends, don't you? They both died. He turned away. Ciao, Sherlock Holmes. Catch you later, Sherlock drawled. No, you won't, Jim sang, the door swinging shut behind him. Sherlock waited for a moment, then ran to Amelia. Are you okay? He said, examining the marks on her skin. Sherlock, I'm fine. I've been through worse. Amelia dabbed at her lip with the collar of her shirt, grimacing when it came back, damp with crimson. Sherlock set his pistol on the floor, kneeling down beside John. All right? He asked, taking John's jacket off. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine, he said, as if he was trying to assure himself of the validity of his words. John sighed as Sherlock continued to try and remove John's jacket with force. Sherlock managed to remove the coat and throw it as far away from them as he could. Sherlock! Jesus, John muttered. The shock starting to kick in. He tried and failed to get up, and slid back to the ground once his efforts proved to be futile. Oh, Christ. Sherlock ran off, searching the changing rooms for any sign of Moriarty. He came back a moment later, scratching at his head with his still loaded pistol. Are you okay? Amelia asked breathlessly. Me? Sherlock said, surprised. Yeah, I'm fine. He turned to John. That thing that you did, that, you offered to do. That was, good. He looked to Amelia. I'm, sorry you had to go through that. Amelia shrugged. I'm glad no one saw that. You, John answered, ripping my clothes off in a darkened swimming pool. People might talk. Sherlock shrugged half-heartedly. People do little else. The trio burst into a fit of laughter as John started to stand. Before he could get up properly, a laser danced over his chest once again. John looked down at it in horror. Oh, bloody hell, you've got to be kidding me, Amelia muttered as Jim Moriarty burst back through the doors at the end of the pool. Sorry, boys, he said, clapping his hands and smiling happily. I'm so changeable. The three red lasers locked onto Sherlock and 2 on John. She could see that there was at least 10 on her. 1 on her forehead, another on the bridge of her nose, yet another on the hollow of her neck. 1 danced over her heart, with another on the sternum, and there was another laser on her stomach, and 2 just under her rib cage. Is this really necessary? She said sarcastically. Jim laughed, holding his arms out at his side. It is a weakness with me, but to be fair to myself, it is my only weakness. He put his hand in his pocket. You can't be allowed to continue. You just can't. I would try to convince you, but he laughed, his voice growing sing-song again. Everything I have to do has already crossed your mind. Then, without a word, Sherlock turned to Amelia. She nodded imperceptibly, and Sherlock raised his gun, aiming it at Moriarty. Probably my answer has crossed yours. Jim scoffed at Sherlock's solution to their predicament. His smile dropped as Sherlock slowly lowered the gun, aiming it at the bomb, still strapped to John's jacket. Check, said Amelia, all eyes turning to her. Mate.